WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, X, and our website, www.wvtcdetroit.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. Thank you for tuning to WVTC Radio Detroit and the Community Bell Show with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner, Edna Bell. Stay tuned for insightful information Detroiters will find valuable. Text a friend and tell them to watch with you for news you can use. And now, your host, Edna Bell.
Hello. It's Monday at 4:00, so it must be the Community Bell Show. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us on this Monday afternoon. I'm not sure what to call it. Obviously, it isn't sunny. A little while ago, I saw snowflakes, and then there was some rain, and then the rain went away, and I saw some more snowflakes. And it's just a Monday in Detroit in December. This is what happens, and we all know that. So we get through it. But again, welcome to the Community Bell Show. We are awfully glad to have you join us on the Stellar Award winning WVTC Radio Detroit. We're just real pleased that you've chosen to be with us this afternoon at 4:00. It is the holiday season. It is the holiday season, and we are just so thankful for all the blessings that have been bestowed upon us during this holiday season. Um, could have been much worse than it was, but it was pretty doggone good when you consider that we have made it thus far. And Lord knows we've made it thus far by faith and by the grace of God. But first, I want to again acknowledge the Reverend Charles Gilchrist Adams, whose funeral was this past weekend at the Hartford Avenue Baptist Church. All the dignitaries that were there to honor him and all the accolades that came in from around the world were so richly deserved. He was a man among men, a preacher among preachers. And if you've never heard him say hello in all the different languages, or goodbye, even in all the different languages, you've not heard Charles Adams preach. That was his signature, and we are just so grateful that we had the pleasure of knowing him, the pleasure of being in his company, just the pleasure of having him minister to so many people in this metropolitan Detroit area, but indeed around the world. Reverend Charles Gilchrist Adams, pastor of the Hartford Avenue Baptist Church, passed away, as you know, and his funeral was this past weekend at the church where it should have been. Hartford Avenue Baptist Church originally was on Hartford Avenue. And for those of you who don't know where Hartford Avenue is, it's still the street's still there, obviously. And the church started and was named after the street in what we call the old west side of Detroit. And the old west side of Detroit would have been west of West Grand Boulevard, south of Tyreman, where Hartford Street and Scotton Avenue and all those places were. That's where Tabernacle Baptist Church was, also in that area. St. Stephen's was in that area. Burnett Baptist Church in that area. So it is really is a historical part of our city, and particularly because of the massive and important churches and ministers that were a part of the religious community in that area. And so, yeah, he will be sorely missed. Reverend Adams will be sorely missed. Just as Reverend Sampson was missed when he passed away, so will Reverend Adams be missed. And we can go back to my pastor, Reverend Wilma Johnson, who came from Hartford Avenue Baptist Church. She was raised under Reverend Dr. Charles Gilchrist Adams and was from that church, was a minister at that church before she came to New Prospect Missionary Baptist Church, is where I go to churches. So lots of good stuff happened at Hartford and is still happening at Hartford. We've received some wonderful, wonderful pastors from that historic church. And again, our hearts go out to the Reverend Charles Adams family and the Hartford Avenue Baptist family. I have another unfortunate funeral to announce, and well, we don't know when the funeral is going to be yet, but dear friend of mine, Mr. Charles Small. Charles Small was the executive director of the Don Bosco Hall for Boys, and he was the executive director for well over 25 years, actually, but he worked there for probably closer to 40 years. He started when he was a young guy there and then became the executive director. I had the pleasure of serving with him on the board of directors at the Don Bosco Home for Boys for almost 20 years. So again, the family of Charles Small, we send our condolences to you. Charles passed yesterday, unfortunately, of a long disease, cancer. Cancer's killing a whole lot of folk. But Charles was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful young man. As a matter of fact, the blessing is that he wrote a book that talked about the kinds of things and challenges young Black men face in this community and probably other communities, because he did things all over the country as it relates to young Black boys. And he had a chance to have a book signing and give out those books at a very, very nice reception, actually just over about 3 months ago. And so Charles Small served this community well, served Don Bosco Hall well, and he will certainly be missed. So condolences to his family in the loss of their husband, father, grandfather. He was a great guy. He was a great guy. After the next song, you're going to hear some more stuff from what's going on in our community. And there's always things going on, always things we can talk about. But we're going to talk about some more interesting things as we come back about what's going on in our city, our county, our region, because this really is a region of goings on. At one time, it was really just Detroit and it was just Wayne County. But now it's a region. It's Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. It's all of those places where people congregate, people work together, people try to solve problems together, because certainly we need to work together to look at what's going on in our community to make it a better place for all of us. And so we'll talk about that in just a moment as we move on to our next segment. Thank you so much. We're glad to move on. We're back. Thank you for coming back with us, and thank you for joining us again on the Community Bell Show. We're just happy to have you. It is such a pleasure to have you with us. One more time, we are just pleased to have our guest speaker with us. She has just arrived. We're so happy to have her. our speaker, come on in. Our guest today is the Honorable Angelique Peterson Mayberry, President of the Joint School Board. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Total apologies. Oh my goodness. I'll tell you the story after the show, but I'm just glad
we
that I
always have
made
stories,
it.
but we were worried about you. We're so glad you could make it.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
always good to have you. Always good to have you. How are
Likewise.
you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Good.
I am trying to get in holiday mode already.
I know. It's I said I'm going to wear red.
I like it.
It's going to be the holiday color. It's going to be like, welcome again. All is well
Thank
with
you.
you. I'm glad.
All
you're
is
here.
well. All is well.
That's the blessing. All is
Yes,
well. We're just
yes.
glad
No
that you're
complaints for
very
sure.
glad you're okay.
Thank
We didn't
you.
want anything to happen to you. Well, welcome to the Miss Community Bell Show again. We're
Thank
glad
you
to
for
have
having
you.
me back, Mama.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And, we talked about having you on a regular basis. I think
Mhm.
we're going to do that.
Yes.
So that you can bring us some updates on what's going on in our school system.
Yes.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Go back to you and I had some conversations recently about what was going on in some of our schools in our school system. And one that I asked you about, and I want to thank you for, is that we had a security guard issue at one of our schools.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for being
You're very
able
welcome.
to make that
Yes.
adjustment and get that security
Yes.
guard in that building. It's always helpful for
It
the
is.
staff and the students and the
Mhm.
community to know that there's somebody there who knows how to handle security and who's there to look up for their safety. So
And I think
appreciate
that's, no problem. Thank you for reaching out. Oftentimes, we have about 105 buildings, and so it's very difficult to know what's going on in each and every one of our buildings. But thank you for reaching out. We know that as parents, one of the top 3 things that we look for in the school district is security. And so we want to know that they're safe in our buildings. And I'm very proud about the fact that we have our own public safety department.
Yes.
Because within that, you are allowed to, one, control your training. And so we know what type of training is needed for our students, which may be different than what's needed on the streets of Detroit with our adults. And our officers know our families. They know the families, they know the students. And a lot of times they can de-escalate things before they get out of hand.
Absolutely.
And so I'm excited and really proud of our public safety department. So again, no problem. Thank you for reaching out. And I'm glad that we were able to make that happen.
Good stuff happens. But what's going on in our school system? Talk about good stuff. I know you got good stuff.
Oh, yes. I think the last time that we were here, that I was here, we were in negotiations with our unions.
Yes.
And so we have ratified all of our union contracts. And so that's a pretty proud moment, especially considering the landscape of our unions in the city and across the
and we didn't
state.
have a strike.
We
So
did not have a strike. Teachers were in the classroom every day showing up for our young people. And, that in terms of our support staff and our clerical workers, I mean, it really matters. And I think that what they agreed to is to make sure that we were fair and equitable, but they have a commitment. They have a commitment to our students and to our staff and to our district. And so I applaud all of our union leaders and all of those who are in our unions because they ensured us that there would not be a strike provided we did the right thing. And I think, this is another one of those monumental moments as we talk about our educators. We were attempting to, over these years, make them whole again because better than anyone, they gave back so much.
Yes.
Under emergency management, they just gave back so much. And so each contract, we were trying to give them more and more to make them whole. And I think we are finally arriving at that point where we could say that they are, over a $10,000 increase in salary since we came on.
Great. Talk about some of what they did get, because people keep saying, well, what did the teachers get? What did the union say? I said, well, that's okay. We're going to have somebody who knows what that answer is. Now,
I'm glad you asked. One of the main things that I think is important, in addition to the wage increase, was that they did not consume any of the increase in healthcare costs.
That's a biggie.
And that is huge.
That's a big one.
I mean, I work at Ford Motor Company. I understand that number was in the millions for our educators. And that is something that the district absorbed. So they did not see an increase in their healthcare costs, which I thought was really good. There were some additional things like professional development and things of that nature, but the wages, that was one of the main things, that and that healthcare costs. And the other things were pretty ancillary, but we were making sure that they got what they wanted and what they asked for. And I think if you were to talk to the amazing leadership team with the unions, I think they will say that they may not have gotten everything that they wanted,
Mhm.
but they were pretty happy with what they got.
That's important. That's
Mhm.
important.
Mhm.
You know, recently I read an article about evaluations and teachers and the state putting in some new evaluation techniques for teachers. Talk about that.
So, what we've tried to do is include everyone in that process.
Mhm.
And so we had a committee of people who it was comprised of central office staff, it was comprised of school level leadership and some teachers.
Mhm.
And we talked about what does that evaluation look like. And I think there's still some work to be done, honestly, with the evaluation, because, we were allowed to waive the COVID time, right?
Mhm.
And so, but we had to kind of fight for that.
Mhm.
And it should have been a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
But we kind of fought for that, and so we were given that waiver along with other school districts. But I think that even when you think about central staff being evaluated
Mhm.
and Dr. Vitti being evaluated, we just met a couple of weeks ago to do his evaluation.
Mhm.
There's always a process of evaluation that has to happen just to make sure that there's some things, some checks and balances that we may need to revise or edit. You think about weights,
Yes.
things being weighted. And I think that if you talk to some of our educators, they will say that the evaluation process is a little better than it was, but there's still room for improvement. So we'll continue to advocate to make sure that those voices at the school level
Mhm.
and at the city level for the district are heard in Lansing.
That's important because one of the things I think I read that they were looking at doing was putting less weight on student achievement
Yes.
and more on classroom involvement.
Yes. And we've even had to unpack what that looks like
Mhm.
when you talk about proficiency and growth,
Mhm.
because those are two different things.
Mhm.
To say that someone is proficient is one thing, but to say that they grew
That's
maybe
something.
one or two different grades, then that's something different.
Mhm.
And, the way that our educators are able to manage the classroom and their involvement, not only with students, but even with parents.
Absolutely.
I think that that's a skill.
Mhm.
Would I put more weight on that than achievement? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Sometimes they're fighting a losing battle with,
Mhm.
our village looks different now.
Mhm.
It looks different, and I'm almost surprised when I look at the numbers to find out who's wrapping their arms around our students beyond the education realm. There are a lot of siblings who now have legal custody of their siblings.
Mhm.
And so they're raising them. I meet consistently with the grandparents group, so that there's a group of grandparents who, I don't know if I shared this last time, but these grandparents now are the sole breadwinner, I would say, and decision maker
Mhm.
when it comes to your young people. And oftentimes, you're talking people who may be 65 years older and older, trying to show a kindergartner how to do homework that looks different because now we're
Oh,
using
my.
Eureka Math and
Mhm.
ELA looks different. And so,
And the question is, what is ELA to some of these people?
Exactly, right? Is that language arts? Yeah,
Oh,
English,
yeah.
English language arts.
Mhm.
But I co-parent with my sister and brother-in-law with my nieces and nephews, and even the way that I can get to the same answer
Mhm.
because of what the public education that I received, I
Exactly.
know. But she'll say, "No, Auntie,
That's
you
not
can't
how
do. You have
my-
to do grouping, and you have to
Yes.
circle, or I'm going to get marked down." And I thought, so we do curriculum nights at the schools too, and the intention with the curriculum nights is to educate people on how to help with homework.
Yes.
So our FACE department, they've owned that. In the school level, they've owned that, where you can go in. There's math night. You can go in for ELA night, which is English language arts night, and just really trying to learn. If you're really trying to help your young person at home, then you will at least have the tools and know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's just imagining that someone who's 65, 70 years old, and I look at some of the unfortunate circumstances that happened in our community where the one family, the mother was killed and she had 5 children. And the grandmother was now had custody of these 5 children.
She is indeed.
And Just the thought of that, it's frightening.
She is. So that family, I will
Yes.
share with you, they're doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
They just received a house for the holiday.
Oh,
And
my
so
God.
they're in a brand new home. I was
Oh.
over with them 2 weeks ago, and the grandchildren are doing amazing. And the grandmother is in the grandparents group.
Oh, perfect.
And because she's in that group, there are
Mhm.
a lot of resources that are afforded that group simply because they're in the group.
Mhm.
So whether it is, food or, staple items like that, or is it about getting some assistance with your lights and your water,
Or clothing.
clothing. And so the
Mhm.
district, we have hubs where they've
Mhm.
been able to receive that. But I was just with Mother Burnett 2 weeks ago, actually, and I'll be with them next week before the holidays too.
That
But
is
she's
so
doing
wonderful.
amazing. But you're right. The youngest child in that situation at that time was 18 months old.
Yes.
So you had
Mhm.
18 months, you had a set of twins who were 3, and then you had a 9-year-old and you had an 11-year-old.
Mhm.
And so now they're all a year older. All the children are in school now except the baby.
Mhm.
We're waiting so that he can get into pre-K, but everybody else is in school, and the family's doing amazing simply because, one, she was transparent enough to let the community know that she was in need.
Mhm.
But 2, our community just stepped up, from the school district to faith-based to the city themselves stepped up and really wrapped their arms around that
And that
family.
is so good to hear, because when I saw that, I thought, oh my gosh,
Yes.
I can't imagine being in that situation. What do you do?
Yes.
You get 5 babies.
Yes. Yes.
It's just
I think it speaks to
Mhm.
the heavy load that comes to the schoolhouse every day.
Yes.
And so you never know what our young people are experiencing when
Mhm.
they leave the schoolhouse.
Exactly.
And so I think that extra grace, whether it's for our students or even our staff, or knowing that when parents come up to the school, we want to assume the good when you're coming up to the school and not always get on the defense mode
Mhm,
immediately,
mhm.
just because we don't know what a person went through before they came into the schoolhouse. So, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, that is such good news, because again, that's another facet of a school system that people don't think about.
Yes.
And that's all a part of raising the babies.
It is whole child. I mean, the
whole
village,
child.
whether you,
Mhm.
I always tell people, they'll say, well, I don't have any children in the school district. And I say, you
Yes,
have
you
almost
do.
50,000.
Yes, you do.
To
That's
be
right.
exact, 48,491. But I think about how there were people who lived on my block who, would watch me walk to the next block, or
Mhm.
it's a half a day, so you better make sure you get home and,
Mhm.
don't hang out in these streets. And so when you think about that, those safe homes and those extra eyes were an extension of your parents and your
Exactly.
grandparents. And so we are still part of the village. And people did it for us. So how dare us
Yes.
take a stance that my kids are grown, I'm done with
That's
it,
right. Not
because we
so.
need everybody
Yes.
to help with these young people. They are so amazing
Mhm.
and so talented. And every time that I'm in a school, I leave more hopeful, and I
Mhm.
leave knowing the why.
Mhm.
So despite all the other stuff that comes along with sitting in these spaces, they assure me of the why every time that I'm there.
Yeah.
And even last week, we had a program where we had all of our Black and brown boys from about 6 different schools come to one location, and they were able to talk to law enforcement. So law enforcement from our district and law enforcement from the city of Detroit. And the questions that they were able to ask them, simply because they had access to them.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then they went ahead and they role played what to do and not do if I get pulled over. And some of the questions, Mama, and I mean, they really got deep. Why am I a target? Simply because of the color of my skin.
Mhm.
And everybody on the panel didn't look alike.
Mhm.
So you could hear, really, for me, it was almost emotional sometimes, because you hear young people just asking the why.
Yeah. And really don't understand.
They don't understand, because we don't.
Exactly.
We don't understand, the blood pressure increasing when you see the lights in your
Mhm.
mirror, whether you're an adult, a young person, a male,
It
a
doesn't
female,
matter.
it doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
I tell my 2 young adults, 24 and 21, the end game is to make it home. If
Exactly.
there was anything done during that stop that you don't feel was right, we'll try to work with that once
later.
you make it home.
Yes.
But you have to make it home.
Mhm.
And that was the main messaging. But I met this young man, Mr. Henderson, and I always call the young people by their last
Mhm.
name. But Mr. Henderson I met, and he His stature looked as if he was pretty physical. He was physical fit. And I said, well, Mr. Henderson, what do you do outside the classroom? He said, well, I am a boxer.
Okay.
I said, really? So is that what you want to do after high school? He said, I will do that on the side because I want to be a neurosurgeon.
Oh.
And I said, He said, I'll be the first neurosurgeon who's also a professional boxer. So I joked with him and said, so after you hit him in the ring, then you go ahead and make sure that the head is good. You know, but our just young boy with all of this, when you look in his eyes, all of this, I was so hopeful and so optimistic about his future, simply because our task now is he's identified what he wants to do.
Yes.
How do we now put him in spaces?
How do we get him there?
How do we get him there?
That's right.
How do we get him there?
That's
So, yes, always excited to be around our young people. But I will say, the last time too, we were waiting on some test results from the state. So we outpaced the state of Michigan with our M-STEP scores.
All right.
So really excited about that. Our graduation rate has increased by 8% since last school year. So I'm hoping by the end of this school year, the number will be even higher. And, the two things that we battle and wrestle with is the attendance and chronic absenteeism.
I was just going to talk about that. So
I mean, we're better than we were last year. By like 6 percentage points. I think we're at like 57%. So that means 57% of our students are chronically absent. And so chronically absent.
Scary.
Yeah. The number was much higher. And that,
I know. It was much higher, but the question is, where are they? And where are those parents? That's the real issue. See, for me, it isn't the children.
Right.
This is a parent issue. And again, I think we talked about this before. I'm not above bringing those parents in before a judge and saying, okay, A, B, C, D, you either got to pay or you got to go to jail for a day or two and lose some days off work. Your job is to get these babies to school. You are legally responsible for getting them to school.
And it is really sad because when I think about it, our young people now, unfortunately, are the decision makers in a lot of homes.
Yes.
So they decide if they're going to school or not. And, I know in some cases
How scary is that a 12-year-old is making not only for themselves, but for their siblings. And, you have some instances where, the mom or dad, grandma, TT, everybody, they're working. And so the expectation is I have to go to work, get up, get yourself ready, get your sister ready, and you guys get out of here. But we're really putting a heavy responsibility on young people before that. 12, 13, 14, 15, that's not their responsibility. And I know everybody needs to work. They need something to sustain themselves. But your first responsibility is to those babies.
It is. And it is really disheartening to look at the numbers because, chronic absenteeism means that you've 16 days.
Yes.
So 16 days. And some people are chronically absent within the first month of school.
Yes.
We're saying 16 days throughout the whole school year. And unfortunately, it doesn't allow for us to differentiate if this was an excused absence, I had a doctor's appointment or not. But our young people are, and I think we've got to do a better job of making it to where school is where they want to be, as opposed to not wanting to be there. And so oftentimes as we sit and talk with young people, we are trying to reimagine what even day looks like for young people, especially high schoolers, because that's where the numbers are the greatest. Because, you think if you're in a K-8, you're still kind of being told, but the high schoolers are young adults, unfortunately, and much too soon. And so they're making decisions. Some of them are choosing to work instead of go to school so that they can provide. And those become systemic issues that we have to address. I do remember during COVID, once we were back in the building, we were virtual for so long, we were back in the building, and there was one particular school that continued to have high chronic absenteeism. And we found out that a lot of those students were in the workforce and they were working at retail spaces not far from the school. So then the question goes to the business owner. Why then are you employing school-age children before 3 o'clock during school hours? And so that was a pretty heavy conversation, but the conversation was had and, we were able to address that. But at the end of the day, the young people were saying, hey, listen, I have to provide for the household too.
Yes.
I have to contribute to that. And so we don't want to disturb that, but you have to provide after school hours
Mhm.
because we want to make it to where that doesn't become your only source of income, even after high school,
Exactly.
unless you're looking to, go into another, if that's your preference, that's one thing. But it was just really difficult to see young people having to make those decisions. And although it was never my reality and, not my children's either, I just remember my mom saying to me, it's no rush because once you're grown
Grown
for the rest of
forever.
your life.
Yes.
So, you don't
Yes.
try and grow up so fast.
Mhm.
Just enjoy high school if you can. And so we're trying to make the experience for school much more enjoyable because it's so much more than just reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Oh my goodness, yes.
It's just
Yes,
so much
yes,
more. And I
yes.
think if we continue to focus on that, then we'll continue to see some of these numbers. But our attendance rates right now, we're close to 90%. We're at 85%. And that means students who are coming to school every day.
Mhm.
And so that is hopeful. That number is higher than it has been.
Yeah.
We're still not back to pre-pandemic numbers yet, though. And so, the last time that I was here, I talked about virtual school and how the pandemic forced us to create a virtual school. At that time, we had over 3,000 students in virtual school. Now, there's a little around 300.
Oh, good.
And so
Good.
majority of those students are back into school buildings because there's a social aspect that I think you have to make sure that you acknowledge.
Mhm.
And for our young people, when we look at the numbers, to be in a kindergarten and first grade, you need to be in a building.
You need to be in
You need
absolute,
to be
and
in a
those
school
ages
building.
are much too young to
Much
be
too
virtual.
young. Much too young to be virtual.
Much too young.
Much
yeah.
too young. So those numbers, but we set a target even for pre-K.
Mhm.
And so our target for pre-K for this school year was 2,000. So we've exceeded that number, which is exciting. Over 75% of our schools have a pre-K classroom. And when you visit the pre-K, what we do know is if your child is in pre-K, they're 3 times more likely to do better in kindergarten.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what the challenge is if you have a kindergarten class split with some students who are in pre-K,
Yep.
some students who were not in pre-K. And so you have this learning curve that's being slid. But I think when you put these young people in learning environments, and they're learning a variety of things, obviously, even something as we would think it's too advanced for them, but critical thinking. And, as they're having lunch family style. So they're learning table etiquettes, things of that nature, how to be nice and kind.
Yes.
And I think some of our adults can take that class too. But just how to be nice.
How about that? Yes.
Yes, just how to be
Yes.
nice and kind. For some of them, that is their first
That means they
learning
won't be
experience.
watching school board meetings.
They definitely won't watch those meetings.
They won't
I'll
watch
tell you
because
that.
some of the parents are not nice and kind. They missed that lesson.
Yes, it has been that way for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are some of the things that I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of the fact that we're moving in the right direction, and the data shows that we're moving in the right direction. I think there's still a huge opportunity for us with our ESC students, as well as those who are actually going to take advantage of all of the mental health support and the support through the hubs that we have. I think as a society, we have to do a better job of reconditioning people's mind.
Yes.
So that if they need mental health support,
they don't
then
feel like it's something bad.
That's right.
They need to
That's
feel
right.
comfortable. So just like if my knee is hurting, I go to somebody to help my knee. It's the same thing, but the society has not gotten there yet. And hopefully we're going to get there, but right now we're not there, and we need that so much. I'm almost want to say mental health right now is one of our top priorities. It should be,
absolutely,
not just for adults, but for our students.
For our students as well,
particularly because they are going through some tough times, and as the adults are going through tough times, the kids are going through twice. And
I think the thing is they are becoming desensitized to things, and that's not normal. And so we don't want them to get used to trauma.
Yes.
And not knowing how to deal with it. Right.
This is not everyday behavior.
No.
We don't want you to think that this is how the world goes.
No.
This is not how it works. And helping them do that, because in some homes, that's every day.
It's every day, and it is the norm. I spoke the other day, and I told some young people as we get ready to come on this break, and I know everybody needs it. Our staff needs it. Our students, they want it, but I think that after a week, they're ready to come back. just because, that's a different environment for them. But just really trying to stress the importance of good decisions while they're out.
Yes.
And so,
yes.
We lost a student last week, the 5-year-old young student who,
Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking.
young Mr. Sterling. And so he was a student in our district. And, when you think about students who are supervised or not, the curiosity from young people.
Absolutely.
And how they think that it can't happen to them. And so as I talked to these young people the other day in the assembly, I wanted to stress that during this break, make sure that you are making really good decisions, because the consequences behind decisions sometimes are very final.
Yes, but the question is, do they even know what a good decision is?
And so that's what we got to do a better job with that. That conversation, I specifically talked about firearms.
Yes.
If they've seen one, not to touch it. If they see someone else touching it, go tell someone, things of that nature. And, we could blame, music and TV. We can do all of that. But at the end of the day, we have an obligation and a responsibility. And so we've done tons of talks from our public safety department. We've done demonstrations in terms of, what to do and what not to do. And we've had assemblies and things of this nature. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's something that we can overemphasize.
Absolutely not.
About not touching firearms.
Absolutely.
Just not. And for our parents in our village, I would just really plead to them to really check your young person's social media page. The social media bullying is well beyond where it needs to be, and check at their book bags. Just being a little bit, you can be that nosy parent.
Yeah,
go ahead and be that nosy parent. That's quite okay.
I think, I was one of those nosy parents, and I was at school every time my kids look up, and they finally, when they were seniors, they just said, "Mom, will you please not go on the senior trip?"
My mother went on a senior trip too, so
I said, "Well, now, okay." I didn't go on the senior trip, but I made sure there was another parent of mine that was on the senior trip.
Contact with it, right?
But they need to know that.
They need to know. And, we have a department that specifically watches social media. And that is where a lot of times we are proactive in the respect that we've been able to catch things, address them before they get to the next level.
Yes.
But, I tell our young people all the time, it's not private when you put it on social media.
Exactly.
It becomes public.
It's public.
Why are they looking at my page?
Your business when you put it out there.
Not when you put it out there, And so they, again, it's that filter system, because you're learning as you get older through circumstances and experiences in life, you're learning.
Yes.
You're still learning.
Yes.
And so when you put a thread on social media, we are working with the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, because we investigate every single one, because the one that we don't,
that's the one that
might be the one that something is actually, and I am so thankful to God. And I just say that because I'm unapologetic his daughter. But I'm just thankful that we have not had any incidents like that.
Yes.
Because we really have, a lot of times our students will say something. They will say, hey, so-and-so has a weapon in his bag. He's showing it or she's showing it off to people. And that's how we find some of the things beyond the metal detectors. We're having an increased number of students who are letting other students in school buildings that don't belong there.
Yes.
The last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of that. And as we typically around this time, as we approach the holiday, we see just a lot more risky behavior going on with our young people. And so because we know it, we know we have to do something about it and not be reactive to everything, but be proactive in as many spaces as we can. So that I think that two-way street of students feeling comfortable enough to talk to someone is huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're about to end, but before we end,
I have to come back now because I already got here. Okay. All right.
But we have to, I want to talk about and congratulate the young ladies at the Cass Tech golf team.
Cass Tech golf team. Way to go. Yes, they made history.
Congratulate those young ladies.
They made history.
The first time in all of Detroit public school history.
Absolutely.
And that team is only 3 years old. Can you imagine what their future is going to be.
They're not ready for them. I don't know if I'm ready. They're so humble too.
Oh, and they are. They are. And I'm just so proud of them and the parents that helped out, the coaches. And I'm pleased that I spoke at their banquet last Tuesday when they had their end of the season banquet, and they gave their patches and their medals and their trophies and just and the seniors got beautiful flowers.
Isn't that
amazing? It was just such a wonderful ceremony for those young ladies.
Isn't it amazing?
Absolutely amazing what you can do with young people.
And that's the thing. It's exposure, right? And so we brought them to a school board meeting. We recognized them and coach at the school board meeting. And it's really about access and exposure.
That's what it is. Access and exposure. I mean, they are, I just am so proud of them.
So proud of them.
And what they have accomplished and what they're going to accomplish.
Absolutely.
Those seniors some of them are going to go and hopefully play golf in college. The ones who are coming up will be even better.
That's right.
They're going to be even better. Just so that you know, we're still working on trying to secure a local spot for them to practice.
Okay.
I just have a problem with them having to go to Royal Oak. I just really do. So
when we have Detroit Golf Club right in the city.
Detroit Golf Club, right? Rouge Park right there. And so we've been working with the city of Detroit.
Okay.
And the councilman in that district, where
Great.
Rouge is, Fred Durhall, is helping us to try and secure Rouge Park as their home course and as their practice facility.
I love that too, because a lot of times people will say that they are partners and they get on television and radio and we're partners. Show us what partnership looks like, because it can't be in word only.
No,
it has to be in your deed. And so if Councilman Durhall is on it, I'm pretty sure he'll get the results that we all
to get
need.
them their spot.
That is amazing.
They're so deserving. And I want those other schools to come to us. Like we have to go those long distances to play with them. Rouge is a premier golf course. They need to do that. And again, we've got places that practice at the Detroit Golf Club who schools are way away,
right?
Across the valley. So we need to have some conversation about that too.
We do, and exposure so that people know that these are some of the challenges that we're experiencing with some of these places that you are patronizing.
Exactly.
Just there are some influential people who patronize these places, and sometimes it's a simple conversation to let them know that I'm just as passionate about this as some of these others who may not be in the room. And I love about, we have those young ladies at CAS with the golf course. We have with the golf club, we have wrestlers, we have swimmers, we have lacrosse. I mean, these students are track teams, football. It's amazing. Volleyball. Like when I go to these activities, their recreation, I get it. But for me, I'm always in awe with the level of excellence that these young people demand of themselves. So this is beyond what a coach would say. It's just what you demand of yourself.
Exactly.
And really the support that comes out for these young people.
Yes.
I was at Frederick Douglass last week for their program, and they were doing, Frederick Douglass is an all boys school. They just moved into the old Northern building on Woodward.
Yay, Northern. The big and old.
The big and old, yes. So they were doing this amazing program, and you saw basketball players, football players, all of these. But what you saw was a brotherhood that was so close. They were cheering for each other after they were singing. These young men could sing and they were acting, and it was amazing. And the community showed up for these young people. It was during the day, but people showed up. So you had staff, you had district office, you had community there. And Dr. White, the principal there, he concluded the program by singing himself. So,
all right.
I told him I have it on video. I have it on video.
Okay, can't beat that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having
You're right.
me.
You're going to have to come back. So
definitely now.
We may have to make this a monthly event.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
We'll pick a Monday that's good for you, and you let me know what's good for you, and we're going to do this because it's important enough that we can talk about our young people all the time.
All the time.
And make sure that community knows how important it is and what's going on. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Madam
for
President.
having me.
We appreciate having you.
Yes, thank you.
This has been the Community Bell Show. We're so glad you joined us. Good conversation with good people. Join us again on Mondays, 4:00. Now, this coming Monday is Christmas, and the Monday after that is the first day of the year. You'll see some recordings. You won't see us here on those Mondays. I just want to let you know that.
I'm glad to know that. I'm glad to know
that. I want to let you know that. However, right after that, we'll be back live again. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank
again.
you. Thank you for
Appreciate
having me.
having you.
Yes.
Everyone, have a wonderful, wonderful holiday.
Bye.
We'll see you. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Community Bell with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner Edna Bell. This broadcast was brought to you by WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, tell a friend to tune in. We'll see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern to the Community Bell Show, right here on WVTC Radio Detroit.
Go to your Apple or Google Play Store and download the WVTC Gospel Radio app today. You can also say, Alexa, play WVTC Radio Skills.
Would you like to play WVTC Radio Network?
Absolutely. Download it today.
You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit, and we're flowing in the Spirit.